Hey, deserving listeners, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. I'm going to teach a class as a podcast episode. This occurred to me last weekend as I was teaching a class, and I thought this would make a good podcast episode as I was teaching. And I thought, well, I'd have to take out all the assignments, and I'd have to modify all the notes to kind of make it a podcast episode because, podcast episodes, I just talk and talk and talk. But I thought, what if I actually experimented and assigned the readings to the listeners and assigned the assignments to the listeners, had the in-class exercises completed by the listeners as I went along. And I thought, why hasn't this occurred to me in my 12 years of being a podcaster? So in this episode, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach a class to you, the patrons, that I taught to my graduate students last weekend. And I'm going to assign the readings. I'm going to have you pause the podcast so you can do the exercises. I'm going to modify it a little bit because there's a presentation involved, and obviously I can't be there for a presentation that you're performing. But everything else is going to be the same. And by the way, this is going to be for patrons only. So if you're not a patron of the podcast, you won't have access to this episode. I apologize for that. So if you want access to this, become a patron of the podcast. This episode is going to be about attachment. And I have been rerunning a lot of the attachment deep dive episodes on Saturdays recently. So this is sort of a coincidence because I created a new class at my university that is a 1-credit class, a 1-weekend class on attachment theory and how to use attachment as a therapist, but also how to recover from your attachment insecurities. And it gave me a chance to boil all the deep dive into a very concise lecture. But it also has exercises. And I feel like I understand attachment theory better since the 2 years ago when I recorded the attachment deep dive. And so I'm really excited about this. And again, if you're not a patron of the podcast, go to patreon.com, become a patron of the podcast, and you can listen to this whole episode. And you can follow along like a student. Now, you don't have to. You could obviously just listen to this and not do any of the assignments, so to speak. But I encourage you to do so, and then let me know at the end how things go. All right. So this episode is going to end now if you're not a patron. If you are a patron, it's going to continue.